Okay. Well, let's start.
Do you want that aimed up at that?
What?
Do you want that aimed at that?
Yeah, sort of.
You're kind of like at the flares.
Yeah, more of me. I don't know if you can adjust it. Sir.
Is that connected anymore over there?
You got travel insurance?
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was
Should be HDMI, right?
It was, yeah, it was there earlier.
This is set up to broadcast the signal.
Is it, it's just using the laptop, right?
It's
Yeah.
got it plugged into the laptop.
So, unplug the HDMI if you don't mind.
Well, it's not gonna go to the TV if you do.
No, I mean, yeah, and now plug it back in, that's all I'm saying.
You need to buzz off and just.
Just try to reset it.
I think it might. I do.
You still have the remote?
You can't just.
I don't think so.
No.
Not for this long.
Right, exactly.
For a week to 10 days.
Yeah.
It should be nice. It might still hurt a little bit, but it shouldn't be so bad.
That was good.
Yeah.
Have you been to the one over here? Northwood?
Yeah.
Because the less you
Where,
put weight on it,
yes,
the
it's
better
just a
off
little
you are.
port, a little
Do
thing.
you know anybody that's got a deal with
Yeah, I like it. It's good.
Ah, hey, we got it.
But it's not, you don't make anything real spicy.
Yeah, because people don't want to buy them because they're expensive. And the amount of time you need them.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Ellen, you want to introduce your speaker, please?
Thai spice.
Welcome, everyone. We're privileged to have some information that we're going to learn tonight about kayaking, but I wanted to give you some background on our speaker. Mark Berger started sailing in college, and he raced in California, and he was on the varsity team, and he raced on Flying Juniors. And then when he was in medical school, by the way, he's also a doctor, for those of you who don't know, he was in Canada, and he raced lasers up there. I don't know when he had time to study. Anyway.
Well, the lasers go real fast. So.
Well, that's true. Extra study time. Good point.
It's wet Wednesday night.
Okay.
I left the emergency room, rode my bike to the laser, we had our race, ate dinner, went home.
Okay. And then he owned a boat here. It was a CNC 30, and it was called Red Baron, and he kept it in Dunedin when Dunedin Marina was functioning.
Live.
And he raced for the Dunedin Boat Club before he found this wonderful club, Safety Harbor Boat Club. He's been kayaking for 15 years, so he's got a lot of experience, way more than most of us. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, please give a warm welcome to Mark Berger.
Feel free to interrupt, criticize, whatever you want. Okay, so kayaking 201 means, I assume you know what kayaking 101 is. Kayaking 101 is, there are basically two types of kayak, you get in and a paddle. Okay, so the main thing to start off with is this. This is a paddle, kayak paddle, and there are a whole bunch of little things, features we can talk about. The shape of the blade varies. There are basically two shapes, the slightly airfoil type or the regular spoon type. The difference is the spoon type sucks. So it is bigger, it is harder to use, it is inefficient. One thing people need to know for the kayak is you don't push water back. The blade grabs the water and you pull the kayak forward to where the blade was. So the idea is to grab a piece of water and push the boat against it. So there are some eddies, there are patterns, swirls, it doesn't matter. blade is either fiberglass, nylon, or wood. There still are some wood kayak paddles. Recommend you don't get one. Most of the paddles are in two pieces, and they go together. So some of them are in 4 pieces, and some are in 1 piece. So you probably have to get a 2-piece. Okay. There are usually 3 settings here. When you set it slightly off, it's called feathering. And it is, so when one blade is up, the other is at 45 degrees. This is useful if you happen to like feathering. So if when you dip in and pull back, the other one's going sliding forward. And if you do it right, it's cutting into the wind rather than pushing the wind. So this is good for less wind, for wind resistance. But you have to remember to do a slight wrist turn. So it takes a little more wrist work. So that's one of the big things. Do you want it feathered or not? I usually don't feather it in the middle, so both blades are parallel. And only if the wind is bad and so then I will consider feathering it, because I don't like doing this as much. All right, so the basic stroke, there are a whole bunch of different strokes we can talk about. Length of the paddles, they come in anywhere from 220 to 270 centimeters. Probably doesn't matter much. Supposedly, you should be not able to touch the top. The important thing is when you look at your boat, pretend this is the boat, you have to make sure your paddle sticks off the end of the boat, about a foot. So if you have a really narrow kayak, you can get away with a shorter paddle. If you have a really wide kayak, you may need a wider paddle.
What's the height of that one?
That's a 240, I think.
240.
2.4 meters? I think so. Okay, so, but again, it doesn't matter that much. So the basic stroke is you put the paddle in way up front and you pull it backwards. Or actually, you put the paddle way in front and you pull your kayak forward. So when you put it in, most of the time, you're going to dip it in fairly quickly with the blade straight. You don't want to push water down. So it's fairly straight. One of the other things people forget is sometimes they like putting the paddle in upside down. The longer part should be on the top. So if you're sitting like this, you're telling everybody, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, I've seen a lot of people do that. Okay, so there is some slight curve to the blade. There's usually a reinforcement, and there isn't too much else. Some paddles have bigger heads, some have smaller. In general, if you're a less strong person, you want the smaller paddle head. If you're a big stud, you want the big one. So for example, the 2-man kayak Hobies have really big paddles because it takes a lot of pull. Whereas some of the smaller person's paddles will be a little bit less wide and broad. Okay, so the 2 basic strokes are going to be the high stroke and the low stroke, and it's a matter of preference. The low stroke is basically this. You swing your paddle, put it in the water, pull back, pull it straight up, or you can do sort of a curve, and then you go put it else. The other one is the high stroke, and you do this. And there really isn't that much difference. In general, I find when I'm lazy, the low stroke is better. I don't have to carry it up as much. But a lot of people think it looks much prettier to do this. Now, if you want power, it is more powerful to put it up. So when you want a power stroke, you tend to do this. You really dig in and pull hard. In general, your kayak should do, most of the time, hull speed. And hull speed is 1.4 times the square root of the water level.
That's what I thought.
Same with boats. In general, a 10-foot kayak should do about 2.5 knots.
Yeah.
So if you go faster than that, you're wasting your energy in the long term. You can do it. So if you really want to go fast, you can go fast and really dig it in. But in general, there's no point really in going much faster than hull speed. It's just easier. It doesn't time you out.
In the winter months, don't they have a kayak race out here?
I don't know.
Camp John, do you remember? We went and saw Cam race one year after
Yeah, I don't know if it's an annual thing or
Oh,
not.
okay, yeah, because Camp Garland, one of our members
Okay.
participated in this race out there.
All right. So again, the main thing is you can be lazy and just use your hands. You can put your whole body into it and swing, really pull, and you can pull some lat muscle use and other things. And if you're doing it high, then you can just get into the pattern. So basically you put it in as far as comfortable. If I want a little more power, maybe I'll reach a little bit more, grab a little more water and pull myself up. You push the water all the way to the back until it gets to be useless. But at some point where you're no longer pushing the water, the blade's parallel to where you're going, so just stop, pull it up, and swing. So it tends to be pretty natural, but you can do it wrong. Now, so high stroke, power stroke, regular paddle. The other ones, some of them are unimportant, I'll mention it. I stole most of this from the British kayaking book. So kayaking 401 is white water. So, but one of the things they have is I get the word wrong. The splint. It's not splint. It's something else that starts with an S. That's when you put your kayak in just to balance you. So we're not going to need to worry too much about white water waves and rocks, and we're not going to have to stop and make sure we don't tilt over this way. But they have a high spike and a low spike. And that's where you just use the blade to keep you from flipping upside down on the rocks. So not too important for motion kayaking. This is something else that's very important. This is a drip ring. Where do you put the drip rings? You put it about 6 inches from the tip of the paddle, but they have to be outside of your boat. So if your boat is here, that's good. If your boat is here, you just got a reverse bilge pump. When you come back, the water is going to run straight down the shaft, hopefully catch on the drip ring and fall into the water, as opposed to running down into your pants. So the drip ring should be about 6 inches there. If the drip ring is off, you may have to get some duct tape or scotch tape or something to tape it back in place. This one is no good. It won't really work if it's way up there. The water will go over the ring. So you want about 6 inches. So the kayak, again, in general, the middle is the middle of your body. Where your hands are, about shoulder width apart. Depends. If you're farther like this, you don't get as much force, but it's a little easier. If you're in like this, you get a lot more force, but it's a lot harder on the wrists. Wherever it feels natural. This one has a handhold, just, well, I don't know why, because it has. Most mine don't have it. The blades can be, the shafts can be made of basically 3 things. Aluminum, fiberglass reinforced, or wood. Yeah, nobody uses wood. This is a fiberglass reinforced. Almost all of them are going to have a little thumb button to release it. Make sure this is nice and lubricated, so it works. So there isn't much difference between the the wood shaft and the fiberglass shaft. I've cracked a fiberglass shaft, just cracked, and I bent an aluminum shaft, and I've never played with a wood one. So supposedly the fiberglass are a little bit lighter. If you're really crazy, you can buy a carbon fiber one that's even lighter. You know. So a decent paddle should run you about $65. That's not bad. The expensive ones are $300. You know, but I don't need a carbon fiber reinforced nylon paddle. And they should last pretty much forever. They are slightly asymmetric. Doesn't matter. But again, when they go together, the left, it better be, the top better be outside, not like that. Okay. The other thing, there are 4-piece paddles, which are really nice for emergencies. And if you ever see a 4-piece paddle, buy one. I have one. It has a second connector here and here. So when you take it apart, it's only about that long. Those will fit inside the hatch of most kayaks, which is good. So a 4-piece kayak paddle is a nice thing to have. I have 2. One usually lives in my main kayak, so in case anybody loses a paddle, take it out. The other trick thing to know is at times if you're in a mangrove tunnel or someplace where there's no room and you can't do this, break your paddle apart and pretend you're in a canoe. So you canoe it like this with the J-stroke. And the J-stroke canoe is if you're in the back of a canoe or by yourself. When you're done with the stroke, turn the blade a little bit, and that's your rudder. So you turn the blade, and then you can see. So you want to just get a little bit of rudder action, and that way you don't have to do this and that. Same thing with stand-up paddleboarders. If they're good, they don't have to change every other one, because they don't know how to do a good J-stroke. So if your paddle will break apart and you're in a narrow area where you can't lift it up in the air or you can't do it, and there are some places, the mangrove tunnel at Cooper's Bayou is too narrow, maybe. There are times when you can sort of do that. But there are other times when you want to just break the paddle and do a J-stroke. So that is most of the paddle
Do you
stuff.
recommend sailing gloves so you don't
Yes.
get blisters?
Yeah, I do. So basically, it should feel fairly natural. The big thing is don't put it in upside down, right? It's really embarrassing. Make sure you've got the bigger part on the top. Slight curve, reinforcement here. Put it in fairly quickly into the water and just pull back. You're actually pulling the boat forward and the water's supposed to stay. You will get some swirls and vortices, all that. You don't really care about that too much. So that is paddle 401, I believe. Straight chopper, lately. Oh, leash. Forgot about the leash. Okay. If you're not great and you're smart, and I'm not always either, you will get a leash for your paddle, so in case you do something stupid, like you don't pay attention, it doesn't float away from your boat. I have whitewatered, I have lost one paddle. The boat capsized, I was worried about me and the boat, the paddle is gone forever. I've also recovered a couple of paddles from other people. So the easy way to do it is to get a piece of paracord or some thin rope, get about 6 to 8 feet, put a bowline in one end, put it here, put your paddle together. The other piece you tie anywhere on your kayak. So if it falls away, you just go to the piece and pull your paddle in. You can buy $20, $30 fancy leashes with all sorts of Velcro and bungees and stuff, but it's not worth it. So basically, what I actually do is I actually put the bowline around and tuck it into the bowline so it's fairly tight. Then I usually leave it sort of in the middle, but it can be up there. It will get in the way, but if your rope is long enough, you got a good 6-foot thing, you're not going to do too much. And if you do lose your paddle, it won't go too far. And if you're doing whitewater, your paddle is going to go real far, real fast. So the leash is actually cute. Don't buy one. Just get a piece of 1/8 inch line, 4 millimeters. Bowline loop here, the other end to your kayak. You see, most of my boats have that. So that's where they're supposed to be.
Where have you whitewatered? Ocoee,
and Carthay, and in Georgia and Tennessee. I had never kayaked on the U.S. National Kayak Center in Ocoee, Tennessee, which is where the Olympics were held. I whitewater rafted there, but you got to be darn good. Oh, just for curiosity, there are 5 classes of degree of nasty water. Class 1 is flat. Class 2 has little bitty ripples about this big. Class 3 has wavelets up to about a foot. Class 3 is probably my comfort zone. Class 4, you tend to get some white water with waves up to 2 feet, and Class 5 is more than that. We did Class 6 once in a inflatable boat, and we had half the crew fall overboard, including the guide. It was nasty. I mean, it just, so in general, whitewater kayaking is different. Okay. So that would be strokes, wheels, T-stroke, length, grip rings, leash, blade effort, shaft shape. Okay. Kayak paddle 201.
How do you catch your paddle?
Actually, yeah, probably should. I don't think Oh, okay, well, that's where we are. I think I did it, high, low, pull kayak forward, tower, sweep, sweep. Okay, sorry, I forgot the sweep stroke. Sweep is when you want to turn the boat really quickly. And it's really sort of says what you think. When you paddle, push on the left, the boat will tend to go to the right. If you want the boat to go to the right sharply, instead of pulling back, you put it flat with the water and just push the boat so you're turning that way. It's pretty instinctive. If you want to turn, you pull the opposite direction. So there are times when you're going along and say, oh, I want to make a really sharp turn. Put it way, way up there and just sweep it back. All you need is to get the top of the water. And you are trying to push your boat that way. So that's the sweep. Brace, that's the word I was supposed to say. This is the brace, where you suddenly say, oh, there's a wave there, I better brace. Brace, you just put it into the water and hold the paddle to steer you. Again, mostly white water, you don't need the brace. Sweep is good. If you want to go to the left, you sweep to the right. Ah, sorry. And the farther out, the more power you get. So if you stay every other stroke, you're supposed to stay straight if the kayak's skeg straight, if it tracks straight. If not, you may have to do 2 to the left and 1 to the right. One of the other tricks is if you're weak on your left hand, move your right hand farther out. So that way you don't have as much pull with your right hand, and the poor little weak left hand gets the benefit of an extra leverage. So you don't have to keep it there, you could go. If you're really silly and want to exercise yourself, there's the underhanded pull. Very stupid, very hard to do, very energy, but it gives you some extra muscles that you won't otherwise tone up. So every now and then you may want to do 2 minutes of the underhand stroke. But usually it's just like this. Thumbs, whether they're parallel or in, doesn't matter. Comfortable grip, decent shoulder length apart, nice, slow, steady paddle. The speed doesn't matter. It matters what you're comfortable with. If you want to go faster, you paddle faster. And from my part of Georgia, you know what the saying is. Paddle faster, I hear banjos. I lived on that river, by the way. One of them. Okay. So, the split J stroke, again, next to kayak. Okay. All right, load and launch. This is the other thing that's fun. I have learned you have to load an hour before you want to. So it takes forever to load kayaks. So those are wheels, or dollies, or carts, whatever you want to call it. There are 2 basic types. One is for the sit-on kayaks. I hope you know the difference between a sit-on-top and a sit-in. But there are 2 bung holes, the bailer holes, the scuppers. This one is adjustable so that you adjust it so the 2 uprights fit into the scuppers. That's the only place it'll work. There's some padding there. But basically, if you've got a sit-on-top kayak, you get those, put the kayak sideways, shove the thing in, and now you've got a trailer. And it's really nice for dollying. I have trailered my kayak on that. I pulled it by hand. I have pulled it by my golf cart. I have not put it on my car yet because I don't want to get arrested. But it is good to have kayak wheels.
How do you hitch it to your golf cart?
What?
How do you hitch it to your golf cart? Do you have a thing, a hitch?
No, actually, I just tie the front painter to the golf cart and just run it up on the side. With some of the wheels, you can actually use it to help load the kayak. There are some wheels that are designed to run right up your car onto the roof, but they're really big. These things are fairly inexpensive. This is the other type. It's a sort of a universal kayak rack for a sit-in kayak or a surfboard or almost anything else. It will fit. It's a little fussy. The kayak wheels can go out of alignment. You have to tie it down. Very good thing if you are going to carry your kayak any difference manually. It's a long way to launch. Put your kayak on that.
And what, pull it with a rope or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I have a painter picture somewhere else. But you basically put the rack approximately halfway the center of balance. You move it back and forth. it should be really easy to lift up the kayak if you do it right. And then you just grab it and pull it. So we've used it a few times when we get a couple 100 feet from the car. The other two ways to unload a kayak is to do it the old-fashioned way, which is grab it and pull it and carry it. One person carrying a kayak usually has to carry it in the middle, and hopefully there's a handle for that. That gets to be a little tiring. Two people carry it, one in the front and one in the back. I'll have some pictures like that. There are usually T-handles, and the T-handles are there to pick up the kayak. Okay. Roof rack, next thing. This is what everybody should get. This is a $30 Walmart Boat US Universal roof rack. It is two pieces. Of course it fell out. No, I don't have it. It's two pieces of foam that looks slightly like a doggy bone. And it usually has some non-skid on one end. I'll take it. Well, somebody else will see it. And you put one on your roof in the front, one on the roof on the back, then there's straps. If you're not too careful, you can just strap the roof rack on by itself, and there's a picture of that. If you want to be extra careful, the simple way to do it, open the two doors, take the strap, put the strap in the top, close the doors, and tie the strap across the kayak and the roof racks. If you have enough, you can open it. So there are 3 or 4 ways. This is good for almost any hardtop car. I have taken a kayak once on my convertible Mini Cooper, but that was a pain in the butt. One on the what's the rail that you don't flip over?
The roll bar.
Yeah, the roll. One on the roll bar and one on the windshield. Okay, this is it. Good. So basically you get 2 of those and 2 of these. And usually you put the flat on your car roof. It only holds one kayak. And then you put this either in through your car and out the window and tie it. Or sometimes you can actually, if you're brave, you can tie it, the kayak handle. Usually it's better, tie the roof rack down with its 2 straps, put the kayak down with its 2 straps, 4
That
straps.
just means you gotta get another strap though, right?
Yeah.
Or I can use this.
No.
No, don't use this for both.
You should have at least 4 decent attachments. We'll talk about that in a minute. This would take 2 more because you got this.
Yeah, right.
So these go by lots of things, bones, whatever. If you want to put 2 kayaks together on the top, or 2 windsurfers, or 2 any sort of boat, you can put one down, put one of these in between, and put the other one on top of it. So we used to use these for doubling. So this is like $20. You don't have to have a roof rack, you just put it on your car. If you want to be extra safe, I do recommend you buy a nice Home Depot cotton heavy drop cloth for about $15. Things are incredibly heavy. You throw them on your roof and nothing's going to dent your car.
And then put that on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and,
Blue
okay.
tarps work.
Nah, I don't.
No.
So, yeah, so this is a good thing. West Marine has it. Windy, no skid universal deluxe kayak kit. Yes, sir. So it's a good thing to have. One of my rules is if you're coming with me and you're going to borrow one of my kayaks, you better have your own roof rack. So BYORR. If you don't have a roof rack, you have to figure out how to put it on the roof. Okay. How to get the kayak onto the car. All right. The way for what we used to do when we were steadily was the one-man clean and jerk.
Yep.
Your car, if this is the roof of your car, and the front is there, the back is here, you go in the middle of the kayak, you pull it up, put it up to here, and you just do it. Not too hard to do if your kayak weighs only 15 pounds. Not so easy if it weighs 60. So the one-man clean and jerk, I used to do when I was young and foolish, I don't do it anymore. The 2-man clean and jerk is you get a kayak this way. One person gets in the front, one on the bottom, they work it together to their shoulder, and then they throw it up on the roof. Now, do you want to throw it opening on top or opening on the bottom? Doesn't matter. I don't care. I usually keep my opening on the top so what's in the kayak doesn't fall out. And who cares about the extra wind resistance? For a sit-on-top kayak, again, it doesn't matter whether you want the passenger side down or the passenger side up. If you are putting two kayaks together, neck and neck, then it does matter. So some of the kayak racks are designed to put two like this, or two like this, or two like that. And you can get, two-man clean and jerk. The third one, that I didn't write in there, but I'm going to tell you the one that I really like is the tilt and drop. And this I'm going to pretend. This is a kayak. This is a car roof. If this is the rack here, sorry, two racks here, one in the front, one in the back. You take your kayak in the very back of the car, and hopefully with somebody else, you pull it up so that it is standing on its tail. Some of the kayaks actually have a special device for this. You can just throw a life jacket or something, or if you really don't care, you won't scratch your kayak that much. So you put it up like this, you walk it forward, and you do that. Now, when I do that, I put my tarp on the car. So if the kayak bounces, it won't crack my window or the paint or things. So that's a pretty easy way to do it. If you have somebody else, you can have somebody over here to help guide the kayak up forward. When you take it off, same thing. If it's here, I just grab it, pull it straight off, bonk. These kayaks, the nylon ones, the plastic roto, they're so impervious to everything, a few scratches won't hurt. So a lot of time we just drag them. Don't care, a little bit of rust. If you have a $2,000 sea kayak with a really good gel cover, it's different. Okay, so straps and painter. I think that's on the next one. Nope. Okay. All right, so launch. You've got the kayak on the car by either the tilt and swing, the two-man lift, which is what the preferable way is, or the one-man lift if you're stupid. And I used to be stupid all the time.
How about putting them in the back of an SUV? You don't recommend that?
Yeah, you can do it. That is something, but they will stick out the back. So then you better make sure you have a good way to tie down your lift gate
Right.
and hope that nothing flies outside and you're going to lose your air conditioning. But yes, and if you have a pickup truck, same thing.
Right, pickup trucks like the other.
Same thing. So, but in general, most people will have the roof racks.
Right.
Now, most of the cars have two roof racks built in. An SUV has to have a roof rack or it's not an SUV. But then the crossbars are optional expense. Buy the factory crossbar.
Right,
It's really worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
And you can put pads on the crossbar.
Yeah.
I have those sort of things I have, or you can put round foam pads. But basically it's just to cover it. There are also saddles you can get that are designed to hold a kayak that'll fit on the crossbar. And there actually are convertible ones, which is what I have right now. And the convertible one, okay, if this is the crossbar, the saddle gets clamped this way, and then there's a thing that pops up. So you get two L brackets. You put your kayak in the L brackets and tie it up. So, all right, once you've got it on the roof rack, in my opinion, if you don't have a painter, a little rope in the front attached to your kayak to carry and pull it, and you don't have one in the back, you're foolish. So you should have a reasonable painter in the front and in the back. And that's what you use to tie down front and back. Most cars will have some place to do it. If not, you can get one of those little red tongue things. And everybody has it. It's a little piece of plastic with a webbing loop. You open up your hood, you put it in, you close your hood down, you got a little thing. That's a tie point. Do that in the back, you got a tie point. What I use my towing hitches. I put towing hitch. If you have a trailer hitch, the middle of the trailer hitch is a great place for the rear one. So your kayak is on the roof, you have a painter in the front, you tie it there. With a page in the back, you tie it there. And then one or two other straps this way. And that's all you need. The straps can be inside the car. In general, the straps should go on top of the roof rack. And if you have a roof rack like this, you can put the straps under here. But I always put one strap through both doors, through the windows, so that if the roof rack falls off, the kayak is still stuck. And as long as that front rope stays on, you probably won't lose your kayak to the car behind you.
Mark, I have a
Yeah.
question. I used to trailer sailboats.
Yeah.
Small boat races.
Yes.
Sunfish and JY-15s. Can you use those kinds of trailers?
That is overkill, but yes.
Okay, well, it's easier than,
There is a real official kayak trailer, but you can make anything. You can make a little cradle of wood. You can just put it in, put a plastic. So yes, some people do have, most of the fancy kayak trailers are designed to hold 4 or 8. But you can just do it on one. Yeah, a lot of people did it, lasers, sunfish, but with just a kayak and surfboards and stand-up paddleboards. Okay. So you got your boat off the car. Now what you're going to do, you're going to drag it to where the launch is. And there are a couple of different places to drag it to the launch. One of the things you can do is you can fly it off the beach. I think I do have a picture. Oh, come on. Oops. Oh, great. It's not where I want it to be. All right.
You got a picture of me, when did that happen?
Is that you? Yeah. Does this go forward or back? Anyway, all right. Oh, there's the mangrove tunnel. So again, this is one, if you're paddling, you're going to catch here, here, and there, so you may want to take that out. The Wheaton Island mangrove tunnel is notoriously shallow. Do not ever try to go through it with a regular kayak paddle. You'll rip everything. Looks, somehow or other we got. That's a sit on top hobie kayak. Why is this not doing? Okay. Anyway, all right. So you're at the beach. One of the ways to do it is you put the kayak 3/4 of the water in the beach. You walk, get your feet wet above your ankle. Put one foot in the kayak. Put the other foot in the kayak. Try not to fall and slip. It's very embarrassing. And you sit down in the kayak. You're still partially on land. You're still partially in the water. The boat doesn't move much. Now what you do is either with your paddle, you pole it like you're a poler, or you ooch it. Remember ooching? You're not supposed to ooch. You go. And you'll get about 6 inches on each ooch, and eventually your kayak will float and you're gone. Now ooching is important. You will, there are other times you see a tree and you want to get over a tree and you get 3/4 over and you're stuck.
Can we get a shot of Mark doing that again? That'll be in next month's
He's
newsletter.
videoing.
Yeah, he is OOCH. It's a sailing. You can't do it in small boats. It's cheating. So that's one of the ways to do it. When you land, it's the opposite. Most of the time you just plow full speed into the beach and get the kayak halfway there. If you want to be really foolish, you can stop and get off in waist deep water and walk it in. It, in general, is very easy to fall out of a kayak. The sit-on tops are a little bit more resistant to falling. The sit-ins are notorious for falling out. And sometimes,
Yeah.
what?
I thought it was the other way around.
No, the sit-on
The
tops,
sit-in is more stable.
no.
on the
The
white.
almost all the sit-ins are much narrower than the sit-on tops. And they will roll much more easily. Yeah. So the width also depends. In general, most of the sit-in kayaks are narrow. The sea kayaks, those are the ones that are 16, 18, 20 feet tall. They're incredibly narrow. Okay. And, oh, why am I not getting this? Oh, let me do it this way.
Mark, we just need to come to work this time.
No, it's not in order. All right, so the alternative ways to do it is to find one of the fancier launching things. So the basic, all right, so one of the ways to do it is to find an old-fashioned regular old dock, drive your boat up with your painter, which you always have. You painter the cleat to the front, and you put your boat in the water. And if you have a rear one, you hang it to a cleat on the back. Then the kayak's floating in the water right next to the dock, and now very carefully you attempt to enter it. There's no science behind it. It's a sit, scooch, and hope you don't fall in. Don't stand into a kayak. It will not hold you. You have to sit your butt down, put your legs in, and then scooch around to sit down. Getting out is even worse. So if you have your kayak, you're up to a dock, you've got your front painter tied to the cleat, you're there, try to get somebody to help you. But if not, you have to sort of muscle your body up, put your butt off the gunwale onto the dock, and slowly turn. Very easy to fall in, I've even done it. So it does happen. So sideways tie off the dock, fairly common thing. Cradles and U-slips are really nice. There's a really nice cradle at Double Branch. And these are fancy things they built where there actually is a little cradle with rollers. You put your kayak in. Some of them have a handrail. So you grab the handrail, you sit down into the kayak, and then you scooch it off the thing, about 5-foot run. Sort of like what they have at Disneyland on those log rides, when you get into the log rides, and then it goes into the water. So some of those are nice. Some of the other ones just have a U-slip, like a regular slip. And it's a regular slip that's about the width of a kayak. You put your kayak in the middle and you board from one to the other. Tarpon has a nice one, a few others. Some of them have a pole across there. So you can actually hold yourself with the pole until you get down. So that's basically the 4 ways to land. A painter is a rope that goes from the front. It should be about 6 to 8 foot long, and it's useful for everything. You can pull your kayak with it. You can have somebody rescue you with it. Pick up a motorboat and say, "Help, pull me in." You can drag somebody else behind it. If another boat is bad, they can tie to yours. So a painter is really an essential thing. That we don't care about. That's shallow water. Okay, here's the launch from boat ramp. Yeah, there's that painter thing I said. It's just a little rope on the top. There's the T-handle. This is a sit-on-top kayak. And so basically you just slide it down to the boat. It's partially floating on the top. Get in, push with your pole, or push a few times to get it into water.
That's our work.
That was our boat ramp, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Like we owned it, but just saying.
Our boat.
It's ours.
As a matter of fact, that was one of the club's trips. I can't remember who that is. It's not me. Somebody else. Okay. This is important. If your kayak doesn't have side handles, buy them and put them in. And they're about $12 a piece. You put 2 pop rivets or through bolts, or worst comes to worst, just a wood screw. The kayak handles are halfway. When you're sitting in your kayak, you put your hands there, that's where your hand grips should be. They're to hold your hands, to hold you. If you need to get back into your kayak sideways. Okay, so again, this is your kayak and you're in the water. You go up to the kayak, you grab the far handrail, and then you try to pull yourself up. In a sit on top, it's not that hard to do, but you've got to have that handrail there. So, and the other thing is if you're carrying it by yourself, you can carry it one hand on that, just lug it like this. So those are important. Some kayaks have them. Most of them have to be added. I'm going the wrong way. Oh, there's a sea kayak I just want to mention. One other thing with the sea kayak, incredibly narrow, sharp, long. All sea kayaks basically are sit-ins. a sit-in kayak should have a spray skirt. I think that we'll talk later on. Yeah.
What's the difference functionality?
Of a spray skirt?
No, sea kayak versus a regular.
Sea kayaks are incredibly faster, lighter, easier, more expensive, longer, and theoretically they take less effort to go a long distance.
So it isn't about waves then? I was thinking golf versus
They handle the
bay.
waves better than
No, they really don't. You aim into the wave and you go through it.
that lane.
But if you go sideways, you'll still lose it. Okay. This I just have because it shows a whole bunch of things I want to talk about. So that's a fish I caught, yay.
Oh.
So you should have a place to hold the paddle on your kayak. Most of them have some sort of paddle holder. It could be a little piece of bungee cord and a little fold in the wood, sorry, in the fiberglass. But there usually is some sort of built-in holder for it. Okay, this is a spray skirt. And a spray skirt is a device that covers your cockpit and attaches to you. So you sit in it, you put suspenders on like a waiter, you sit down, and then you wrap the spray skirt around the kayak cockpit. That way it keeps the water out. If you're whitewater kayaking and you don't have that, you're a fool. If you're in heavy weather with waves and wind, you're a fool. It is good also to keep you warm. So it zippers up here up to you. Oh, and this thing right here, that's my leash, my kayak leash. And there are a few other things. That's my life jacket.